Hi, my name's Steve and welcome to the Seaside Allotment channel. It's an exciting day for me today because we've pretty much harvested as much this year as we harvested in the whole of last year. We're only in the middle of September and we've got a lot of stuff in the ground. So I'm just going to run you through the allotment finances and I'll talk a little bit about how things are changing next year. So yeah, we've harvested £7,200 this year so far, and I'm really pleased with that. It's been a really good growing year. Obviously in all years you have, things work well and some things fail, and we've had our fair share of failures this year, but in general I think it's been a pretty good gardening year, and it's certainly been an easy gardening year. And I think we're only doing about maybe 2/3, maybe half as much time on the allotment as we did last year, and next year we're looking to reduce that just a little bit more as well. So yeah, £7,200 harvested. Now, what are our costs? So our costs have been ridiculous this year, somewhere in the region of £1,100. So although notionally we made, and it is notionally, a £6,100 profit, our costs have been way too high, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that we've tried a lot. We've been experimenting with a lot of varieties. I think we grew about 250 varieties this year, and that is too much. And so I think we'll be down to probably about 150 next year. So that's a lot less seeds because we've basically been whittling away at our seed list to get the things that we think are the absolute best in our circumstances. And so I'm really pleased with the way that that's gone. I'm really pleased with what we're left with, and I don't think we'll kind of suffer as a result of growing less variety than that. Second is, we continue to invest heavily in compost. We can't make as much compost as we need. When you're taking that much food out of the ground, you really need to put a lot back into the ground. And so we've put a lot of compost in, and we don't use very much in the way of fertilizer, and all of it's organic obviously, we do put quite a lot of compost down, and that compost obviously acts, we put thick mulches down wherever we can, so we're using that to retain water in the soil, and again next year we're going to do a lot more of that as well, because we're trying to save as much water as we can, partly because we want to reduce the amount of effort we put into watering, and that's probably the biggest reason by far, but also just because our allotment sites' long-term strategy is to reduce the dependence on tap water, and potentially at some point in the future even eliminate tap water supply, except in times of drought. But I mean, that's a long-term strategy. So in order to be kind of compliant with that strategy, we're working hard at rainwater harvesting and mulching and changing the crop mix to be less water hungry and more drought tolerant. So we're doing a lot on that. So yeah, lots of compost, lots of seeds, and lots of rainwater harvesting investment. And so we put in lots of dip tanks, polytunnel guttering systems, and IBC tanks and other water butts and things like that. And we put in 2 big water butts and new gutters in at home as well. So yeah, many hundreds of pounds worth of investment in guttering and tanks and dip tanks and the like. And we also need to bring water from home for harvesting, and tap water from home for harvesting, because we really like to harvest into tap water and get everything washed and prepped and boxed up as quickly as possible. We don't like to be taking fresh produce home that's not in, washed and in sealed containers. And so we've bought quite a few big water transport buckets, that are food safe and all of that sort of thing, so that we can bring those in the car. We can wash everything here with our own water, and then we can take the whole thing home. So all prepped and ready. So we're really happy with that. So this year's been a big investment year. But next year should be way better. But I'll talk about next year later, I think. So £6,100 profit. and £7,200 value. Now we always get loads of questions about that. So the first thing is, how do we calculate the £7,200 in value? Well, we did that when we were really keen at the beginning, and we always harvest into standard 2-litre sealed sort of Tupperware containers, and we get those from Home Bargains, and they're £1, so they're a fantastic bargain. They can be reused like 100 times or more. We have hardly any breakages of them, and the lids, none of them break. The actual containers, some of them break after say 50 or 60 uses, but the lids are great. So yeah, we harvested, monitored everything for about 2 months, and then we took that total and we divided it by the number of harvest containers, and we got about £2.50 per container. And obviously sometimes that's way too high. For example, a container full of curly kale isn't worth £2.50, but a container worth of raspberries is worth way more than £2.50. So it averages out nicely. And so it's only a game, and so obviously we don't take it very seriously. We just want the simplest possible way, really, of just having a rough idea of the value that we're harvesting. So of that £7,200, we have eaten about 50% of that. In total, the family's eaten 60 to 70% of that. And we always have a little bit of a surplus which we give to our friends, and that is mostly, almost all, the high value leafy greens. That's the stuff that costs the most, it's the most nutritious, and it's the stuff that has a growth cycle. I.e., at the beginning of its life you're harvesting very little, at the end of its life you're harvesting very little, but in the middle you're harvesting loads. And so at the beginning of the season, you need to plant loads of stuff in order to have enough just for ourselves, and then by the middle of the season you've got way too much, and at the end of the season you've got just as much. And so in order to have a nice continuous level supply for us, because we're self-sufficient, we got to have these peaks and troughs. And so having stuff that giving our surplus to friends and family just works really well for us. And of course it's fantastic for the environment, because there's nothing better really than growing your own food. It saves masses of water in commercial production, saves loads of food miles, there's no pesticide use or anything like that, so it's really healthy, it's really fresh, so it's fantastic for everybody. But we're not going to grow that stuff on the allotment anymore, because it's just too much hard work in the spring and summer and early autumn to be growing leafy greens on the allotment. Harvesting's too much of a pain, washing it and processing it on the allotment is too much of a pain, needs too much water, and too frequent a water, because every time you harvest really it's a good idea to water, and since we're harvesting a couple of times a week, it's a lot of water that we're putting down. So we're moving all of that stuff in late spring, summer and early autumn to the back garden, which means all of our surplus is coming from the back garden, which is really nice. And so we don't have to worry about what happens on the allotment, because our friends and family are getting all the food they need from our back garden, and that's really nice. And that means all of the stuff on the allotment is the staples. And of course that's a fantastic thing, it's a fantastic change for us, and it's something we've been working towards for a couple of years now, is to grow things that are really easy on the allotment, things that don't need, things that you just plant, wait and harvest. You don't need very much water, they don't need very much attention, and really quick to harvest, and less susceptible to pests and diseases and things like that. And so apart from the potatoes, all of the staple stuff, the cabbages, the winter brassicas, the beetroot, the spring onions, the onions, all of those sorts of things, the peppers that we use for cooking, sauces and things, the tomatoes that we use for cooking, all of that sort of stuff, the squashes, summer squashes, all of that, all stays on the allotment. All of the salad stuff, all of the cooking greens, all of that sort of stuff all moves home. So it's a fantastically exciting change. It's going to result in a lot less time and effort on the allotment, a lot less water on the allotment, and you know, and great productivity, because those sorts of things they grow really well under cover. They go really well with thick mulches. They look pretty ugly, and so all the pretty stuff is at home as well. All the netted stuff, which is really ugly, is at the allotment. So it's really nice. So let's just talk about that £6,100 profit and the costs. So we track it reasonably well, and I think that our true reduction on a food bill is about £4,000 so far this year, and so that's taking the costs off the true profit, because we gift the surplus to our friends and family. We don't sell it, obviously, and so some of that profit isn't a true profit. Some of that £6,100 isn't a true profit. So it's about, you know, but £4,000 is still very nice, and it means that although we've had to invest quite a lot of money on rainwater harvesting and mulches and things like that, it's peanuts by comparison with the savings on our food bill. And of course, it only gets better year on year. Our profit margin and savings off our food bill get better and better. So I think I pretty much covered everything, other than to say next year, because we're really only growing the staples here, that there's two kind of implications of that. It means that the staples only go to family, because you can never grow enough staples to go to friends. We've got so many family here that yeah, we you know, even if we had like every square inch of the allotments cultivated, we wouldn't be able to grow enough staples. So that's okay, but it does mean that because the garden at home is smaller than the allotments, we won't be growing quite as much of the high value stuff as we grew in previous years, and so our kind of next year, we're not looking to break any targets. You know, we're not saying our target maybe for this year might be, you know, £9,000-10,000 in total by the end of the year, but next year we're not going to try and break that. Our objective next year is to reduce water usage. It's to reduce time spent on the allotments, and it's to improve food quality and freshness, and to meet more of our family's needs for staples rather than the highest value. And obviously that's not as good for the planet, it's not as good for the environment, but it's fantastic for us, and that's what really matters. You know, at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do to save the planet. We do a lot. We basically have almost a zero carbon footprint. So we're at the point now where, you know, most of our investment is going into ourselves and our lifestyle, and you know, we've done pretty much all we can. So with that, I think I'll finish this. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon.